families and friends are suffering too. Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Call 1-866-200-0223 or visit alanon.org/help.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
We've talked often about the United States and our $33 trillion in debt and the threat that is to everything from the economy to national security and everything in between. What is Congress doing about it? Well, we know there's a bipartisan proposal on the table to establish a fiscal commission. We discussed that, of course, yesterday with Senator Mitt Romney. The question beyond the headlines, though, is if you really care about someone, do you send a super committee, or is there something else that should get us out of this crisis? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, as we spoke with Senator Mitt Romney yesterday and talked about this new commission that he and Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia, it's bipartisan, bicameral work. We think that's good. We think that's important. We're going to come back to that in a second because I want to get to the think again component to all of this, and that is, do we need a super committee of some sort to deal with this, or does Congress already have the power to do it and they just aren't willing to do it? And to help us get through all of that, Eric Boehm, of course, a reporter at Reason, has a great piece and really getting to this idea that Congress is just trying to avoid taking responsibility for the very crisis that it created. And Eric, welcome back to the show.
Glad to be here, Boyd. Thanks for having me.
So let's start with the Congress's role in all of this. So we'll come back to Senator Romney and Joe Manchin's proposal. I think there's some merit and value there in terms of where we are. But to me, this is one of those things of I always criticize the Blue Ribbon Committee to have a Blue Ribbon Committee for Blue Ribbon Committees. And are we headed down that same path, or is there something in here that can actually help us change the dynamic of this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, like you, I'm of two minds about this, and so it's not, I don't have a hot take here one way or the other, but I am struck by, I am struck by the sort of the comedy element of this, and this is what I wrote about yesterday for Reason. This is now the second House Budget Committee hearing. Yesterday was the second House Budget Committee hearing in the past few weeks about this idea of creating a commission. And so if you take a step back from it, what's really happening here is we're having a committee meeting to talk about the possibility of creating a commission that will then talk about things that we could do to address the debt, that will then bring a bunch of ideas back to Congress that then Congress will have to act on. And it seems to me like it's just, I don't know. This is a very Washington solution to a problem, right? Of we'll talk about maybe forming a commission that will maybe come up with some ideas that we'll eventually bring back in front of us to talk about. The House Budget Committee is the fiscal commission. That's what it is. It's a bipartisan group of people whose job it is to manage the federal budget. This is not, it's not earth-shattering stuff here. If you want to get your hands around, if Congress wants to get its hands around the debt problem that the country has and the budgetary issues that the federal government has, the Budget Committee is the right place to do that. I don't think we really need another entity to do it. All that being said, and we can get into this. I think there are some good arguments for having this commission, but it is kind of silly.
Yeah. The full circle moment of it all is that anything that comes out of this committee or out of this commission will ultimately end up back in front of the very same House Budget Committee, right?
Yeah. Now, some of that is, depends on exactly how you structure the commission, I should say. And there are people who I think are very smart people who write about this. A number of people who think the commission is a good idea, and who think that you could actually structure it in such a way that you kind of take Congress almost out of the equation, and you would force Congress to maybe object to what the commission recommends rather than make them affirmatively. Now, some of that makes me a little squeamish on some constitutional grounds, because then you're creating a commission that can kind of set budget policy for the country independent of Congress, and I don't like that. I don't know if the courts would go for it either. I think there's a lot of good objections to that idea. Now that being said, again, the good part of this, or the sort of the positive sheen on this idea, is that if you do create some sort of commission and you let them make these decisions, then Congress can object to it. All the members of Congress can do all their grandstanding and say, this is a terrible idea, these are terrible ideas, but I can't stop it because the commission, made these recommendations. So it is a way to create some political distance there that allows members of Congress basically to weasel out of having to make any sort of actual, meaningful decision about this stuff. And maybe that's what we really need, because maybe Congress doesn't have the right incentives to solve these problems. But it is it is concerning. I don't think that's a good place for the country to be in.
Yeah, I think the long-term impacts of that, I think, are real challenging, because then you end up with people who aren't elected, aren't accountable.
Right.
If they can go around the system, that becomes problematic. I do agree, and you pointed out in your piece, you referenced our good friend Romina Baccia from Cato, who has kind of gone down that path and saying, look, here's the positive things that could come out of that.
Right.
And one of those is creating space that if members of Congress on both sides of the aisle don't have the political steely spine to do it, it could still get done despite all of that rather than because of that.
Right. And I have a lot of respect for Romina, and I think she makes some really good points, in particular the idea that this would basically allow us to fix the problems the country faces without having to have Congress involved. That sounds great. I think consequentially that's probably the right way to go. Like I said, it just sort of makes me a little nauseous to think that we would have a Congress that would deliberately delegate its own responsibility on making these decisions. And it also, I don't want the members of Congress to be able to wiggle out of this, because as I said in the piece for Reason yesterday too, Congress created this mess. It's not the $33 trillion national debt didn't fall out of the sky like some sort of asteroid, right? It didn't just happen to us. It happened because these people chose it. Maybe not these exact representatives, but they and other people who filled those seats before them made these choices. Yeah. And so I think they've got to be the ones to unmake those choices, or to at least choose different things and choose better things going forward. I don't think you really accomplish anything meaningful and long-lasting by just punting these decisions off to some sort of unelected or quasi-elected body, because that prevents Congress from grappling with the sort of bad incentives that got us in this mess in the first place, which means those incentives will still exist, and they will put us in another mess in the future, regardless of what the commission might do. I think this is an interesting idea. I don't think there are any bad ideas at the moment, because this is a serious crisis. We should have everything on the table. This is something worth thinking about and something worth thinking through. Yeah. And I'm glad that this conversation is happening, but I am also just not fully sold yet on the idea that this is actually the way to go.
Yeah, and I agree. I think this is the beginning of this important conversation, and I so agree that if we can't get rid of all of the perverse incentives that landed us here, because we always say on this show, you can't get $33 trillion in debt through conflict. It's collusion. It's both sides of the aisle,
right,
willfully making choice after choice and then not being held accountable for those choices that get us here. But if a commission like this were at least to give us a chance to get to close to ground zero anyway, but at the same time, if you don't change the apparatus or the support structure around it, then we really are just putting a Band-Aid on it, and we're going to end up in the same boat moving forward.
Yeah, and I think there's also this interesting idea. It's another one of these things where, once you take a step back, it kind of doesn't make any sense. Because, when you first hear it spelled out, it's like, okay, we could have a commission, and we'll bring in experts, and they'll, come up with some idea. It'll be a mix of, there's a few different proposals out there, but we'd end up with some mix of lawmakers and outside experts. And they'll come up with ideas for how to balance the budget or keep the debt from growing, limit the future growth of the debt, stuff like that. That all sounds great. Yes, okay, we should do that. But then when you think about it, what is the role of the committee process in Congress already, right? It is to bring in outside experts and talk about ideas that might be in the best interest of the country. I don't think there's some sort of secret knowledge out there that a commission will unlock. The way you balance the budget or balancing the budget's probably off the table, but the way you limit the future growth of the deficit and debt, those things are not unknown. You need to we need to either have more revenue or spend less money, spend a whole lot less money in most cases. We need to make some technical changes to the way the entitlement programs work. Like, these things are known. These ideas are, it's not, we're not going to go digging for some new thing. A commission is not going to come forth with ideas that are not already out there.
Yeah.
So if the point of the commission is to have a space to talk about those ideas, again, I think, well, isn't the budget committee kind of the space to talk about those ideas? Shouldn't that be where this is happening, right in front of Congress? I don't know that there's any sort of thing that a commission could do that is any different than what the committees in Congress could already do. The only difference is that it creates this political distance between the members of Congress and, they don't have to take responsibility for the decisions of the commission. Maybe that's the prime benefit. I guess that is the prime benefit.
Right.
But I'm not cynical enough yet, I guess, to believe that we need to take these decisions fully out of our members of Congress's hands.
Yeah, and like you said, it's sort of that exercise program, and if you just keep looking far enough on your internet scroll, you'll find one that there is a magic pill or there is a potion or a lotion that won't require you to do sit-ups and stay on the treadmill for 30 minutes. But I think all of the knowledge.
But it seems like that's
there.
What they're looking for. It seems like that's what these members of Congress are looking for, is some sort of magical solution, which doesn't exist. There's going to be a lot of difficult decisions to be made, and you ran for those positions. So
that's right.
You're the one who has to make those decisions.
You were not elected for easy days. You were elected to do stuff that's really hard. So, all right. As always, Eric Boehm helping us get the right perspective and keeping it all framed. Eric, thanks for joining us today, as always.
Thanks so much, Boyd.
Important conversation, and we're going to stay with the conversation because I agree with Eric in that there are some good things that I think could come out of the commission. And at the same time, if we don't have a serious conversation about what these committees are supposed to be doing and what members of Congress are responsible to do when they take an oath of office, an office that they ran for of their own free will and choice, if we don't change the incentives and the dynamics and create the space to have that conversation in the budget committee hearing process, I don't know that any committee is going to solve it in the end. So we got to rethink our rethinking about how we solve this problem. We're going to stay with it. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. The Olympics are returning to Salt Lake City.
We invite Salt Lake City to host the Olympic and Paralympic Winter Games.
Utah is now the preferred host for the Games in 2034.
The next 10 years is Utah's 10 years. This is us.
Find out what happens next as Utah finalizes its historic position for 2034.
Congratulations, Utah.
We have updates mornings and afternoons and analysis during the Games. Salt Lake City 2034 on KSL News Radio.
Hi, this is Doug Wright, and I am here to talk to the people who are concerned that there's somebody on your gift-giving list that is just so hard to buy for. Well, I have the perfect solution, and it's the gift of theater from Hale Center Theater. And all you have to do, this is easy shopping, go to hct.org. Maybe you could pick up tickets for Elf, or maybe A Christmas Carol, or maybe you want to get season tickets for that special person for an amazing array of entertainment next year. Clue, Fiddler on the Roof, The Time Machine, The Nutty Professor, The Addams Family, The Magician's Elephant, and Disney's Beauty and the Beast. That's an all-time favorite at Hale Center Theater. And gift cards are also the perfect gift-giving idea. It's time to go online, Hale Center Theater, hct.org. You can do all your Christmas shopping with the gift of theater.
At Common Spirit Holy Cross Hospitals, we're honored to carry the legacy of our namesake and to extend the legacy of care in our communities. We're part of 20 hospitals and 240 clinics across Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Learn more at holycrossutah.org.
With our roots in northern Utah, Common Spirit Holy Cross Hospitals have a legacy of caring to help every person be whole and healthy. We're part of 20 hospitals and 240 clinics across Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Learn more at holycrossutah.org.
Advertising used to be simple. Your options were radio, TV, newspaper, and let's not forget the yellow pages. Now it seems like a tidal wave of options. Podcast, cable TV, streaming, OTT, CTV, audio networks, smart speakers. On top of that, you need digital marketing for your website along with SEM, SEO, display, video, YouTube, email, and all the social media platforms. Look, you're the expert in your business. Wouldn't it be nice to have an expert to market you? We are Bonneville Salt Lake, the local marketing and media company you know and trust. We reach customers across all digital and social platforms and have the reach of traditional advertising available as well. We find your customer anytime, any place, anywhere on any device here in Utah or anywhere in the world. We work to optimize your results with our in-house local team of experts, providing you with qualified leads, not just impressions. Contact Todd Larson at KSL for a free consultation, including a complete digital audit with no obligation or cost to you. Email tlarson@ksl.com. That's tlarson@ksl.com.
Guys, your promise is your word, right? You stick by it, you live by it. So does Revive Men's Health with our Revive Promise for low T and ED. The Revive Promise means your tests and lab work are free when you begin treatment, and our low T and ED treatments are money back guaranteed. Yes, that's right. We stand behind our treatments and our results. That's our promise to you. Revive Men's Health has successfully helped thousands of men with low T, ED, and sexual health issues since 2011. If you're experiencing symptoms like chronic low energy, less drive, sleep issues, weight gain, poor performance, bad moods, or ED, you need Revive. Don't settle. Get affordable, guaranteed, custom low T and ED solutions with lasting results from Salt Lake City's favorite men's clinic. And remember, there are no extra bills when you begin treatment. All labs and tests are free, and your low T and ED treatments are money-back guaranteed. Call Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City today to schedule your appointment. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
Attention Wasatch Front businesses and property managers. Don't wait for bad weather to schedule professional snow service with GoPave Utah. Your complete parking lot safety starts at GoPaveUtah.com.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
We're staying with the conversation as it relates to what Congress is doing and how they're spending money and what that's doing to rack up the national debt, the impact it has on all of us. In the last segment, if you missed it, we had Eric Boehm on with us from Reason. And we're talking about this whole idea. We started this conversation yesterday in speaking with Utah Senator Mitt Romney about a bipartisan, bicameral proposal that he has worked on with Democratic Senator Joe Manchin to put together a commission that would come up with some bipartisan solutions to get our fiscal house in order. Eric, of course, said that's good, and everything should be possible inside what already exists inside of Congress, except for maybe some of the incentives. And so it's an important conversation, and maybe it is. It might be that we just need some political space for this conversation to happen, where maybe some of those that are unwilling to wiggle or bend or confront the big issues of the day, because it might hurt them politically, might be willing to have a commission weigh in a way that would actually lead towards some changes and some better results for the country. So I want to break down just a little bit some of the things that Senator Romney shared with us yesterday in terms of the fiscal commission, and a lot of that is a result of the fact that it has become so polarized in our nation's capital that it makes it difficult to have real fiscal conversations.
We really have a challenge in Washington, which is if there's an issue that is partisan, it's very hard in today's political environment to make any progress at all. And so, on the Democrat side, there's the view, hey, we want to increase our spending. We don't want to reduce any spending at all. And on the Republican side, it's we're not going to raise any taxes at all. And what this has resulted in is deficits of, almost $2 trillion a year, a massive debt. Our debt as a share of our economy is now comparable to Greece and Italy and the countries that got in trouble just a few years ago. So this is something we've got to tackle.
As that was Mitt Romney yesterday talking about that. I also asked him about how this particular proposal would work. What would this commission look like? And what would the objectives be? And what would the path be in terms of process?
The group would be, as you say, 16 people. There would be 12 of them, which would be members of either the House or the Senate, and then there'd be 4 outside experts. Only the members, the elected people, can vote on whether we have reached a consensus. At the end of some period of time, probably a year and a half or so, if they've been able to reach consensus, we would have a vote of the entire House and Senate, each chamber pursuing their own, if you will, rules. to vote up or down. And the idea is we would look at all spending, all the spending. It's everything from Medicare and Medicaid to defense spending to the domestic spending on a whole host of programs. Everything is on the table. We look at taxes as well. We look at new sources of revenue or improving old sources. So everything's on the table.
So that's an important part of that. Everything has to be on the table. Medicare, Social Security, defense, tax increases, or better doing current taxes. Everything's got to be on the table. I think the senator's absolutely right in terms of that. Finally, Senator Romney said that the benefit of having a commission is that they can really get to that idea that nothing's off the table and that there would actually be a path forward to a full House and a full Senate vote on a bipartisan plan.
The advantage of putting a commission like this together is that there are no, if you will, rules. There are no boundaries saying, oh, you can't look at this. You're not allowed to touch that. This is sacrosanct. Everything has to be looked at, recognizing that the objective of this group is to stabilize debt as a percentage of the economy. And if it comes up with a plan that does that, then it has a privileged way to get a floor vote. But if it can't come up with that conclusion, why then there's no vote. So it's a requirement that they've got to finally reach stability, so that frankly we don't hand the country off to our kids in a period of a catastrophic collapse.
So I think that's an important part of Senator Romney's plan. Again, this is a bipartisan. He and Senator Joe Manchin, Democrat from West Virginia, are the lead sponsors in this, but there are Democrats and Republicans on it on both the Senate side and the House side. So it's bipartisan and it's bicameral. And as the senator pointed out, the important thing is that if the commission can come up with a set of things that does get us to a better place in terms of our debt to GDP ratio, then it would have this privileged way to get onto the floor that would avoid some of the typical infighting and political fighting that goes on whenever we're talking about spending in the country. Prevents both sides from just turning this, weaponizing this for political purposes or for good campaign fundraising. So I think the senator is right in terms of trying to frame it that way of, look, this would get us past some of the partisanship, will get us past some of the political gamesmanship and brinksmanship that we've seen, and actually get a serious proposal. If they come up with a serious proposal, it will get to the floor and it will get an up or down vote in both the House and the Senate. I think those are all good things. I want to go back now to the conversation we had just a few moments ago with Eric Boehm from Reason, who said, look, this can be part of the conversation, and at the same time we have to be very careful because when there are constitutional issues, some of these members of this committee would not be elected officials, so we're going around the system. So there are some problems there. But Eric pointed out that his biggest concern is actually the fact that it lets the people who got us into the mess off the hook for getting us out of the mess.
I think they've got to be the ones to unmake those choices or to at least choose different things and choose better things going forward. I don't think you really accomplish anything meaningful and long-lasting by just punting these decisions off to some sort of unelected or quasi-elected body, because that prevents Congress from grappling with the sort of bad incentives that got us in this mess in the first place, which means those incentives will still exist, and they will put us in another mess in the future, regardless of what the commission might do.
So that's the conversation there. I think there are so many things that we need to look at. I think what Senator Romney and Senator Manchin have put forward is the beginning of the beginning. I think, as Eric Boehm pointed out, we've also got to change the back end and the incentives in all of this if we're ever going to get it right. We'll step aside for bottom of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. We're getting new information now about what led up to a plane crash that killed 2 people in the mountains of Provo 2 weeks ago.
According to a new report from the NTSB, the 3 men were setting off for Driggs, Idaho, taking off from the Spanish Fork Airport. The lone surviving passenger says the pilot wanted to steer clear of Provo and Salt Lake City airspaces, so he decided to fly into Slate Canyon. The passenger says he wasn't able to make out what the other 2 were saying regarding that decision. Before crashing near Kive Peak, all the passenger says he observed is that there was some wind and that the plane's stall warning horn went off. Investigators are still combing over the plane and its engine.
That's KSL News Radio's Adam Small. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. After a procedural blockade on military promotions that lasted almost 10 months, Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville indicated to reporters that he plans to move forward now with pending military promotions as soon as next week.
I know these people, need to be promoted. It's not that they have not done anything wrong, but it's the only way that we've been able to get the attention of the Democrats.
Tuberville objected to a military policy that allows military personnel to travel to obtain abortions. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average has been up all day long, 336 points right now. The NASDAQ, on the other hand, has been sliding and down 111 points right now. And our KSL weather, we're finally going to see an end to the crummy air. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
Early mornings can be hard enough, just getting yourself going.
We try to make it a little easier with news and weather from comfortable, trusted anchors and reporters.
Join us on Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9
on KSL News Radio.
When you crash your car, you get it fixed. When your computer crashes, you get a new one. But what will you do if you've been saving in a 401k or an IRA and the market crashes? If you're in your 30s or 40s, you'll be just fine. But if you're in or near retirement, you could be in trouble. Mike Stevens and his team at Capital Wealth Advisors are here to help. They can run a risk analysis to see if you're too heavily invested in the market. Don't let the ups and downs of Wall Street control you or your retirement dreams. Call 801-210-5500 today to schedule your risk analysis with Mike Stevens and the team at Capital Wealth Advisors. That's 801-210-5500. Crashes happen. Question is, are you ready? Capital Wealth Advisors, 801-210-5500. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Capital Wealth Advisors, LLC, a state of Utah registered investment advisor.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. The IRS just rolled out a new program to help struggling taxpayers more easily resolve their tax problems. It's called the Taxpayer Relief Initiative, and it opens up powerful new options for people looking to get back on the right track with the IRS. And no one knows this program like the professionals at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution company. They've resolved over $1 billion in tax debt for their clients and have the expertise and experience to help you. One easy call to Optima can start the process, helping to put an end to your worries of wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other aggressive IRS actions. Make today the beginning of your fresh start with the IRS. Call the experts at Optima Tax Relief now for your free confidential consultation.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
See the high-flying dunks, show-stopping blocks, and crowd-silencing threes at Delta Center this season. With an action-packed schedule, it's easy to get to a Jazz game. Pick out an unmissable matchup or just a tip-off time that works for you. It's time to put on your Jazz gear and head to the game. Come with a friend, a loved one, or as a group. See all available tickets and options at UtahJazz.com or call or text 801-355-DUNK.
Get your photos with Santa this holiday season. Jordan Landing Shopping Center, located in the Entertainment Plaza across from Cinemark. Check jordanlanding.com for Santa schedule and photo pricing.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
We had an accident northbound I-15 in Sandy just as you're approaching 90th South, out of traffic on the right shoulder. It has just pulled away, and we are back to a crash-free commute on your Valley freeways. Live at the Eccles presents an orchestral Christmas with Marie Osmond. 2 shows Saturday, December 2nd at the Eccles Theater. Tickets at liveeccles.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, one more day of bad air before a series of small storms start moving the inversion out. We'll see periods of valley and mountain snow starting Friday, going through the weekend, and we could see a few inches of snow in the valleys, several feet in the mountains. Right now, 33 degrees and cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
For the last 30 minutes, we've been talking about some of the dysfunction in Congress, particularly around debt and deficit spending. And, of course, now there's this bipartisan, bicameral proposal to have a super committee to come up with a way to fix it, as opposed to just having Congress do the job in the committee that's supposed to do the budget committee. And instead, we end up with a lot of this dysfunction. And we want to get past that in terms of, okay, why are we so stuck in the dysfunction? Stephen Pearlstein is the Robinson Professor of Public Affairs at George Mason University, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist, and has a fantastic piece in Politico magazine talking about kind of this painful, depressing reality of why we're so dysfunctional. We talked about it yesterday in the terms of Fantasyland, and Stephen has taken Fantasyland to a whole new level and across the board. And Stephen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So let's dive right into this. We're equal opportunity offenders on this program, so nobody gets hurt feelings. And I think you did a brilliant job of getting to everyone in terms of how we need to rethink all of this. And you make the case that we really do have a lot of fantasy land going on in Congress, and that's part of the dysfunction. So kind of walk us through, there's a little bit of fantasy land in the right wing, there's some fantasy land in the liberal wing of the Democratic Party, and there's some fantasy land in the center as well. Explain that for us.
So they're different fantasies. They're all sort of fantasies about winning, about ultimately crushing the other side. And the reason, of course, those are fantasies is because, you know, we're a pretty evenly divided country at this point. And it's unlikely that one side is going to be able to impose all of its policies on the other side, and, you know, nothing will happen about that. So the sort of right-wing fantasy is not that they're going to convince the country that they're right. The right-wing fantasy, and I'm talking about the progressive right, I mean the populist right, is that they're going to be able to just bully their way through, that because they're willing to close the government, or they're willing to push the government into default, or because they're willing to sort of take the heat, they can tough it out and basically bully their way. They've done that actually rather successfully with the Republican caucus in the House. And so they think they can, having done that and having sort of gained control of the levers of power in the Republican-controlled House, barely Republican-controlled, that they can then do that with the rest of the Congress, with the president, basically to just force themselves to victory. The progressive fantasy is a slightly different one. It's still, we're going to win. We're going to run the table in the next election. We're going to win the White House and the Congress. We're going to do this, but we don't have to convince the country of this, because in their mind, the country agrees with them. They really, I've found in my conversations, they really do think that the country agrees with them, and it's only because of things like the filibuster or the way the Electoral College is structured, or the Senate having, you know, states, small states having the same number of senators as big states, that only because of this is the will of the people not being given form in Congress. And so their fantasy is that all we have to do is finally sweep the next election, and the public will be so happy with what we give them that Democrats will be in charge for another 40 years, just as they were right after the New Deal.
Yeah, and then walk us through the middle fantasy, the moderate fantasy.
So the moderate fantasy is actually mathematically sound. If the moderates of both parties, let's imagine, I don't know, in the House of Representatives, 20 of the most moderate Republicans and 20 of the most moderate Democrats were to get together, they could essentially control the chamber.
Right.
And everyone knows that, because they would work with the minority to basically run things. The 20 defectors from the majority would work with the minority and say, look, here's the best you're going to get. We're going to offer you this. And the minority party would say, okay, well, that's better than having the majority party do what they want to do, so we'll go with that. So they know they have that power, and they think they can use it. And in fact, they could. If they had the same backbone as those populist right guys who are willing to sit there and take the heat for as long as it takes to win, to win, they could do that. But the truth is that they're chicken. And every time they have an opportunity to show that they can do that, to show that they can govern, to show, recent example, they could have saved Kevin McCarthy if they wanted to have done that. There's a million things they could do. Every day they could do it. They could basically say to everybody, we're not going to play these games anymore. We're going to have legislation on the floor. We're going to bring it to the floor. We're going to let people do amendments. And if you don't do that, we're not going to let you do anything. And if they were tough about it, they could win. But the truth is that they always give in because they give in to pressure from in each caucus. They give in to social and political pressure from their leaders, from the other members. They're threatened with primaries. But here's the other thing about the moderates. The moderates know that even if they cooperate with the other side, that when it comes to election time, the other side will try to beat them and will focus their attention on beating them because, in fact, the moderates are the ones from the swing districts. And those are the only districts that the other side spends money on. You don't spend money to try to unseat someone in a safe seat. So the goodwill that could exist between Republican moderates and Democratic moderates, it's never allowed to build because both sides know that they're going to be targeted by the very moderates they're working with when it comes to election time. That their party is going to target them. They could be as cooperative as they want during this session, and it doesn't matter. They're going to be the targets for defeat in the next election.
Yeah, that.
And so that's why they don't do it. But the problem is that they all are driven by these fantasies rather than, in a sense, realizing the country is split, realizing they're politically hamstrung, and say, okay, well, since none of us are going to win, how about half a loaf, everybody?
Yeah.
And they just don't do that because they still harbor these fantasies that they're gonna win.
Yeah, that winning over rather than winning with, even if it is a half a loaf, they don't seem willing to do that. You pointed out in your piece, and I thought this was a good example. The Peter Mayer, the freshman Republican from Michigan, who voted to impeach President Trump, and thought he had gotten some goodwill in a swing district, only to have the Democrats do exactly as you described. They
didn't even wait to the final election. The Democrats, in his case, tried to defeat him in the Republican primary by giving money to his much more right-wing challenger. And why did the Democrats want to do that? Because they knew they could beat a right-wing candidate in that district. So they preferred the extreme candidate. So they said, well, so thanks, Peter. Thanks for all your help. Thanks for working with us. But, screw you.
And the way the $2.4 million goes to take him out, and that is part of those perverse incentives in all of this when we look at it as a zero-sum game. So give me your perspective, Stephen, in terms of the path forward. How do we either create the space for that movable middle, who actually I think is the majority, but as you said, are just afraid to stand up and say, hey, you know what, guys, we actually are the majority, and we could actually make both of these other parties the minority. We could have two minority parties and have that middle really hold. But is there a path to that? What's the path forward in all of this?
The path, alas, is leader. I mean, this sounds so trite, but, sometimes trite but true. Look, you need to have some people who are willing to be leaders. And I don't just mean the leaders of the party, although it certainly could be them, to just stand up and say, we shouldn't play this game anymore. Okay, we shouldn't play these games. We should realize that we're not going to get everything we want, and we realize, more importantly, that we're going to have to give in on things that we really find distasteful in order to get some stuff that we really want. And we just need a few people who are willing to do it, willing to take the heat, and willing to really shine the light on everyone else's fantasies by saying, what are you holding out for? let's take the immigration issue, which is right before us again this week, okay? The Republicans, the Democrats say, look, we need a path to citizenship. We need a path to legalization for 10 million people who are here. The other side said we got to do something about border security. The obvious compromise is let's do both.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, each of those things is distasteful to the other party, and they keep holding out them. This deal has been on the table essentially for more than a decade. It's been there for anyone to have, and it's farther away than ever because no one was willing to accept the part of it that they find distasteful, even if it's sort of reasonable, even if it's made moderate, and somebody needs to stand up and says, we're going to do this. And by the way, there's enough of us that we're not going to let you do anything else until you do this.
Yeah.
Okay? Okay, we can play the tough game too. Yeah. We're not going to let you do anything else until you do this. Yeah. The country is demanding this. This is a real problem. I mean, it's not like it's a fake problem. It's getting worse, and it's roiling the politics everywhere in the country. Well, if we could just solve it, and if you could just do that with one thing,
then
people would say, okay, I get it. And by the way, when they do it, what would happen? What would happen? Do you think that on radio shows like yours and on newspapers like the ones I write for, that they wouldn't be praised and everything? Do you don't think that people would say, fine, thank you? They would get a lot of positive feedback from that.
No question.
And then maybe they'd have the confidence to do about the next thing. But we sort of need a model for this.
Yeah.
And the models that we have so far are all, to the degree that there's cooperation, it's all top-down models. It's all the speaker and the president and the majority leader get behind the closed door and they make a deal and they give everybody 5 minutes to think about it and they say either take it or leave it. Okay, that's not a model. Okay, the model has to come from below so that they learn how to legislate again.
No question about it, and I think that is absolutely the key. And to me, this is those that we tend to call leaders really aren't leaders, and so we need to get to the leadership is what leadership does model. And I think you're absolutely right. We've never been closer, and we've never been further apart in terms of getting things done, like immigration, where there is so much agreement in terms of what has to be done. But we've got to get past the fantasy land, and the only way past the fantasy land is the leadership that you've been describing. Stephen Pearlstein, Robinson Professor of Public Affairs at George Mason University, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for a reason, and you just heard why. That's the kind of thinking we have to get to, and that's the kind of leadership model, real leadership model, that we have to get to in this country. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to having you back.
Happy to be with you. Thanks.
All right, we'll step aside for a quick break. There's some real crucial stuff in there. We're going to come back to it after the break. Stick around. We'll be right back.
The Olympics are returning to Salt Lake City.
We invite Salt Lake City to host the Olympic and Paralympic Winter Games.
Utah is now the preferred host for the Games in 2034.
The next 10 years is Utah's 10 years. This is us.
Find out what happens next as Utah finalizes its historic position for 2034.
Congratulations, Utah.
We have updates mornings and afternoons and analysis during the Games. Salt Lake City 2034 on KSL News Radio.
Jim Gaffigan here with some more Straight Talk. Now you can get a Walmart Plus membership, plus not pay for it, because it's included with Straight Talk wireless plans. You get free delivery with Walmart Plus, plus a Paramount Plus subscription included. Plus, you pay less for gas. That's a lot of pluses.
Only Straight Talk gives you unlimited 5G data and Walmart Plus included on select plans for free.
Straight Talk Wireless, available at Walmart.
Requires service on Gold or Platinum Unlimited. One offer per eligible account. Paramount Plus Essential Plan only. Separate registration required. Additional terms apply.
Advanced Window Products is having their biggest sale of the year. If your old windows let the winter cold seep in, now's the time to get the highest quality double-pane windows and custom insulated frames. Advanced Window Products is a local company that crafts beautiful precision frames right here in Salt Lake City for 37 years. And the magic is they cut out the middleman. They build the windows, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. So you save on the highest quality windows and frames. Any style, any color, any questions? Yes, financing. They offer 60-month 0% financing. They'll even let you put off the first payment up to 2 years, and while that's tempting to think about, the reason to call them right now is the biggest sale of the year. This month only, when they do your entire home of 10 windows or more, you get $3,500 off plus a free premium glass upgrade. So call Advanced Window Products right now, 801-850-9100, 801-850-9100, or AdvancedWindowsUSA.com.
Have you Googled yourself lately? Are there negative posts from an ex-employee or from a former client? Maybe an outdated news article or sensitive personal information about your family? Search engines don't always get it right. For right or wrong, it's your reputation on the line. That's where Reputation Defender by Norton comes in. One of the most trusted names in online reputation repair, Reputation Defender has been fixing people's search results for over 15 years. Their cutting-edge approaches help you to wipe away unwanted information in your search results. They also promote the good stuff so that it rises to the top, helping you put your best foot forward. Your good name is too valuable to leave to the whims of a Google algorithm. Take control with Reputation Defender. You can start by getting your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com or call 800-401-6681 to speak to an expert. That's 800-401-6681.
Everybody knows that exterior remodeling salespeople are all about the high-pressure sell. Am I right? Windows, siding, gutters, those suckers are going to twist your arm and get you to buy, or they won't leave your house at night. Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors, and I want you to know we don't have high-pressure cells. In fact, we don't even have salespeople. Nope, we have estimators. That's a huge difference. Estimators are trained to look at the entire scope of the project, to see and know if there are any problems, like rotten wood, wood-borne insects, or construction issues specific to your house or your neighbors. Salespeople are more concerned about playing those silly price games. Buy one, get one free, sign today and get 40% off, as if they didn't just jack the price up to give you a fake discount. RGS Exteriors estimators are going to give you a great quote. No games, no tricks, no nonsense. Call RGS Exteriors to quote your exterior project. Our number is 801-280-3110 or visit us at rgsutah.com. That's rgsutah.com.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Dear Santa, thank you so much for remembering me this year. Christmas was the best. Thank you for the shoes, and I love the coat you brought. It's so cute and so warm.
At KSL, it's our hope that every child will have a warm and joyful holiday season. Please donate generously to KSL's Quarters for Christmas.
Every dollar raised goes to buy shoes and warm clothes for Utah children in need. Give what you can at kslquarters.com.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, the survivor of a plane crash near Provo says the stall warning went off before the plane hit a mountainside. Second, turns out bad air quality this week is a problem for pets as well as people. Third, Senator Tommy Tuberville says he's ready to drop his blockade of military promotions. Right now, 33 degrees and cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as always. I am Boyd Matheson. If you missed the last segment, we were with the Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist Stephen Pearlstein, and just a fascinating conversation on Fantasyland. Not the game. Well, it is sort of a game, but it's Washington, D.C. version. And we're going to come back to that at 2:50 today. So you don't want to miss that. Hang around, and we're going to come back because we got to the essence of it all in terms of what it's going to take to change the dysfunction. And the dysfunction is, as Stephen pointed out to us, it's getting past the fantasy land of the left, the right, and the middle. There's a lot of fantasy land going on there. But then it's also going to require this thing we call real leadership. Not leadership by title, but real leadership. So we're going to come back to that at 2:50. So stick around as we move through hour number 2 of Inside Sources. As we round out the first hour of the program, however, we want to go to developments in Israel. Obviously, everything's moving at a rapid pace over there. A very tenuous pause in the fighting. It's led to the release of a number of hostages by Hamas. The diplomatic efforts in the region have been working nonstop and trying to capitalize on any and all progress. And the continued pause in the fighting seems to be holding. We picked up an extra day of pause and some more hostages to be released over the next 24 hours. Also, there's been a great deal of humanitarian work and resources moving in as part of the pause. And all of that's going to continue for an additional day. So we want to take a look at what's working, what's causing many to be kind of wary and even a little weary about what comes next. There was also a horrible terrorist attack at a bus stop in Jerusalem that Hamas has taken credit for. And so we want to get to all of that. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who is racking up more flyer miles than anybody in history, is in Israel today, meeting with key leaders there. The diplomats are trying to extend the pause as long as possible, recover as many hostages as possible. Here's what he said just about 25 minutes ago about the release of hostages and the increase of humanitarian aid going into Gaza.
Our immediate focus is working with our partners to extend the pause so that we can continue to get more hostages out of Gaza and more assistance in. We will not stop working until we get every hostage back home with their families and loved ones. At the same time, we continue to surge humanitarian assistance to Palestinian civilians in Gaza. Together with the UN, our partners in the region, we have significantly increased the flow of food, water, medicine, fuel to power desalination plants, hospitals, and other critical infrastructure. Just over the past week, the mechanisms that we helped to negotiate and implement have more than doubled the number of trucks getting into Gaza. This is still not enough to meet the needs of its people, which is why we continue to work urgently to get more aid in and to get it in faster.
In a wide-ranging set of statements and Q&A, the Secretary of State commented on the terrorist attack that I mentioned earlier at the bus stop. Hamas, of course, claimed credit for it, calling the perpetrators heroic. Secretary Blinken gave some insight into his meetings with Israeli leaders, talking about the civilian death toll in the conflict that has been staggering. Secretary Blinken made clear in these meetings that the steps have to be taken before fighting is resumed to make sure that there is a way to minimize the loss of innocent life.
In my meetings today with the Prime Minister and senior Israeli officials, I made clear that before Israel resumes major military operations, it must put in place humanitarian civilian protection plans that minimize further casualties of innocent Palestinians. That means taking more effective steps to protect the lives of civilians, including by clearly and precisely designating areas and places in southern and central Gaza where they can be safe and out of the line of fire. It means avoiding damage to life-critical infrastructure, like hospitals, like power stations, like water facilities. And it means giving civilians who've been displaced to southern Gaza the choice to return to the north as soon as conditions permit. There must be no enduring internal displacement. All of this can be done in a manner that still enables Israel to achieve its objectives.
And then finally, I want to go to John Kirby, White House Strategic Communications Director, talked about Hamas and the terrorism carried out today and why this is evidence of what is likely to come in the days ahead.
So I won't speak for their operations, and I'm certainly not going to get into private conversations that the president has had with the prime minister, but he has been clear publicly and certainly in his discussions with the war cabinet that they will continue to have United States support as they go after these terrorists. And again, just look at what happened today in Jerusalem. I mean, if anybody's guessing and wondering whether Hamas still has murderous intentions against the Israeli people, just look at what happened in Jerusalem today.
Important words from John Kirby coming out of the White House press briefing today. We will continue with up-to-the-minute coverage in what is happening in Gaza, in the conflict, what's happening with the hostages, humanitarian efforts going in, and a continued pause for another 24 hours. Stay with KSL News Radio for all of that coming up. We'll step aside for top-of-the-hour news and hour number 2 of Inside Sources coming up next. Stick around.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
Listen at home on any smart speaker.
And in your car at 102.7 FM.
This is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. One of Idaho's most infamous prison inmates is now in custody in Arizona. Maricopa County Sheriff Paul Penzone says his team extradited Lori Vallow Daybell over the past 24 hours, booked her into jail overnight.
She had her initial appearance at about 2 a.m. and she was remanded without bond. So the case will now be in the hands of the county attorney.
She's facing charges related to the death of her late husband, Charles Vallow, and the shooting of a relative, Brandon Boudreau, in Arizona. Vallow Daybell currently serving a life sentence in Idaho for the murders of her two youngest children. The private Cottonwood Connect ski bus service will start taking skiers to resorts in Big and Little Cottonwood Canyons on December 22nd. The service requires reservations. Round-trip fare is $20. Its buses are allowed to skip ahead of waiting cars on canyon closure days. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Elon Musk in the hot seat again after, in explicit terms, he told social media platforms X's advertisers pulled their ads from the service following a controversial anti-Semitic report that he made that he didn't want their support. Here's ABC's Alexis Christoforous.
I think it's going to be tough for X, formerly known as Twitter, to get that money back, to get those advertisers to come on board. He admitted that if there was a massive advertising boycott, it would ruin the company. He said if that were to happen, users would know it wasn't because of him, but it was because of the advertisers. And when asked if he would continue to fund X, he basically said no, he would not be there to continue to funnel money into a losing proposition.
ABC's Alexis Christoforous. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average even stronger on the upside right now as we approach the close of trading, up 519 points today. The NASDAQ down, but just by 32 points for the day so far. And our KSL weather, finally, we're going to get rid of this gunk in the air. That's next. KSL News Time 2:02.
Start your days with knowledgeable, friendly voices telling you about the latest news and weather out there.
Hi, this is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
In the business of waking you up each morning from 5 to 9.
On KSL News Radio.
Introducing Yes Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. We're bringing all of Utah's favorite HVAC, plumbing, and electrical brands under one roof. Call the pros at Yes and take $50 off any heating, cooling, plumbing, or electrical system repair over $200. Get fast relief and $50 off any repair from Yes Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. The same great people providing the same great service that Utah has counted on for more than 45 years. Visit theyesmancan.com to schedule your appointment.
Do you have an IRA or 401k? It's natural to think of this as being your money, right? But remember, you still have to pay taxes when you withdraw this money in retirement. And you could be paying a lot more in taxes on these accounts than you know. A lot more. Learn the strategies that can help you reduce or eliminate your taxes in retirement. Don't miss a special edition of Retirement Solutions Radio this Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Right here on KSL News Radio 1027.
Home for the holidays. Sounds nice, doesn't it? What if your home excluded summer yard work and winter snowblowing and was a one-level luxurious townhome with spacious rooms? Sounds even better. Preview your new home for the holidays at an open house December 18th at Nielsen Homes' newest single-level luxury townhome in Bluffview. These homes are move-in ready. No yard work, snow blowing, and close to what you love and enjoy with easy commutes. Experience the Nielsen Homes difference of what spacious single-level townhome floor plans and no stairs look like. Nielsen Homes has been building across the Wasatch Front for over 45 years, accommodating all the things you need combined with the things you love. Ask about end-of-year promotional savings. Experience your new home for the holidays at their open house event December 18th, 5 to 7 p.m. Pictures with Santa and warm churros at the newest Nielsen community, 227 North, 3830 West Point. See what low-maintenance, luxury townhome living can be. Visit Nielsen Homes Communities at nielsenhomes.com. NILSON homes.com.
Guys, your promise is your word, right? You stick by it, you live by it. So does Revive Men's Health with our Revive Promise for low T and ED. The Revive Promise means your tests and lab work are free when you begin treatment, and our low T and ED treatments are money-back guaranteed. Yes, that's right. We stand behind our treatments and our results. That's our promise to you. Revive Men's Health has successfully helped thousands of men with low T, ED, and sexual health issues since 2011. If you're experiencing symptoms like chronic low energy, less drive, sleep issues, weight gain, poor performance, bad moods, or ED, you need Revive. Don't settle. Get affordable, guaranteed, custom low T and ED solutions with lasting results from Salt Lake City's favorite men's clinic. And remember, there are no extra bills when you begin treatment. All labs and tests are free, and your low T and ED treatments are money-back guaranteed. Call Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City today to schedule your appointment. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
Additional seating open for tonight's Jenny Oaks Baker Joy to the World, a Sacred Celebration with Alex Sharp and narrator Jason Wright. Audiences call it a spiritual feast. Tickets at JennyOaksBaker.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
Freeway traffic in the valley looks good, but we do have a crash in Tooele County. This is on SR 36 Main Street at about 400 North. Witness the magic of the Nutcracker, opening December 8th with the timeless music of Tchaikovsky, performed live by the Ballet West Orchestra. Tickets at balletwest.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, one more day of lousy air before a series of small storms starts moving the inversion out. We'll see periods of valley and mountain snow starting Friday, going through the weekend. We could see a few inches of snow in the valleys and several feet in the mountains. Right now, we're at 34 degrees with cloudy skies. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Independent candidate for President Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is making a surprise campaign stop in Salt Lake City today. Both Democrats and Republicans have labeled Kennedy a spoiler candidate. Well, spoiler alert. I think his campaign has some things that are worth watching and worth noting. So what is he doing here? What's the message to voters? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
So we will get past the flash of the headline that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will be making a campaign stop here in the Beehive State today. I think that's an important thing. Obviously, he has to get some signatures. Utah requires at least 1,000 signatures for the independent candidate to get on the ballot. So he's going to take care of that at an event that will begin later this afternoon, about 4:30 to 6, I think, is the prime time for that stop here in Salt Lake City. And it's interesting to me as you watch how his candidacy has unfolded. Of course, started on the Democratic side, challenging current President Joe Biden, then made a shift and became an independent candidate. And it's a really interesting thing. The most interesting thing to me is the fact that both the left and the right have suddenly become nervous. And both sides have been saying that he's just a spoiler candidate, or this is a vanity play, or this is an ego campaign. I don't think it's any of those. And so we want to dig into it a little bit beyond the headlines today and look at what is in this candidacy that matters and makes sense, and why should we pay attention? I think there are reasons. Very interesting, as the campaign released a video describing his effort, the effort that it takes for a third-party candidate to achieve ballot access in the coming year. This is an important one. I think it's way too hard and costs way too much money, and that's part of the duopoly we have with Democrats and Republicans that makes it very hard for third-party or independent candidates to get on the ballot.
Hey everybody, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. here. I'm reaching out to you about an important matter called ballot access. Because I'm running as an independent candidate, we have to tackle a massive challenge of getting on the ballot in all 50 states. That means collecting millions of signatures, which is going to end up costing us about $15 million. That's a cost that the two-party candidates don't have to bear, because they're automatically on the ballot. I'm actually thrilled to meet this challenge because it allows us to showcase our people power in action.
I think that's super important, and we're going to come back to that discussion on another day because I do think the two parties have made it impossible for third-party candidates to do it because of the cost, both in terms of just dollars and collecting signatures, but also all the legal costs that go into navigating that system just to get on the ballot. And so I think Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is raising an important part that we all should take note of, whether you agree with his policies or what he would represent as a president or not. He's raising an important point in terms of, should we only have two choices, or should there be a better way? During a speech in Philadelphia last month, Kennedy announced that he was shifting and becoming an independent candidate. As said before, he was initially running as a Democrat. He gave some of the reasons why he made that difficult decision. Here's what he said.
What is politics going to look like when it's no longer us versus them? American democracy should be more than just picking between two candidates anointed by shadowy institutions. Instead of two parties, we have this kind of uniparty, a two-headed monster that's constantly bickering with itself as it leads us all over a cliff. And at the bottom of that cliff is the destruction of our country.
I think he's spot on. I think he is spot on. The Republicans and the Democrats alike will whine and moan and complain about people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. They'll complain about no labels and a potential unity ticket of sorts, that they're just there to be spoilers, that they're just there to, make sure that President Trump is back in the White House or ensure that Joe Biden gets another 4 years. And when I start hearing that from Democrats and Republicans, that tells me a nerve has been hit. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing for our republic. To have more than just the two choices. That's the ultimate in false choice that we get served up so regularly in this country, is that it's either all this or all that. There's no other choice. It's either this or the evil, awful, horrible other side. And there's much more to it. And there's much more nuances. And it forces all of us to have a different kind of conversation and to stay curious about what actually is going on in the country and why people think that's good policy or that would be beneficial to the citizens of the nation. Kennedy has talked about the need for people to rise up and proactively take back that democratic power rather than wait passively for the country to be stabilized by the elites of the country.
If we wait for someone else to liberate us and unite us, no, then it's not possible. It becomes possible when we decide to take action ourselves. I'm not asking you to make a prediction. I'm asking you to make a choice. It's going to happen if you choose for it to happen. Democracy doesn't come about as a gift from oppressive elites and authorities when they finally relent. Democracy comes when people choose to exercise their power.
It's a choice, and it's choosing to engage. It's choosing to think different. It's choosing to reject the status quo. As people have made that case over and over that this is just a spoiler campaign, I reject that immediately, because here's the test. And I've talked about this over and over again, and I think it bears repeating, that I ask every candidate I ever interview, doesn't matter what party they're in, doesn't matter what office. I have asked people running for a mayor's race. I have asked people running for president of the United States the same question. And the question is, campaigns are hard. This is a difficult row. What will make all of this worth it? What will make all of this worth it? Running for office, even if on election day you come up short and you lose. And if a candidate cannot answer that and answer it with some power and authenticity, you shouldn't vote for him. And I think Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has answered that question as well as any candidate I've heard on either the left or the right, Republican or Democrat, because he says, look, I'm not making a prediction in terms of the outcome, and that's not what this is about. It will all have been worth it if the American people realize that they have the power, that there are more than two choices, that they don't have to wait for the elites and the aristocracy to come and save them, but that we can have a different kind of conversation in this country. And so it's not about being a spoiler. This is not about some kind of vanity project for someone who's bored. I think he's going after something in a serious way, and I don't agree with all of his policy things for sure. But I agree with the conversation he has started, and I hope the conversation continues. And we're going to continue the conversation because this is a crucial one. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is here in the Beehive State today. We'll have an event coming up at 4:30 this afternoon. He's getting signatures so he can get on the ballot, have that ballot access. That's a challenge. He's also trying to say, just come and take a look. Come and have a different kind of conversation. And let's see if we can make a different kind of choice in the country and where that actually might lead us. I think that's important. I think that makes running for office, any office, worth it. If you can get to the end and say, I changed the direction of the conversation, I shaped a policy issue in a different way, I had a chance to interact with people and get them to see a different perspective, or to see that there was actually a path where we could come together and get something done for the betterment of the community and for the country. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. As the year winds down, the storylines are ramping up.
The mystery virus in dogs continues to baffle veterinarians.
Homelessness in Utah has been steadily increasing. Good accumulating snow expected in the mountains.
Keep up with these and the stories still to come. Listen to Tim and Amanda in the morning from 5 to 9. David Dujanovic at 9 and Boyd Matheson at 1. And on your drive home, get breaking updates and Jeff Kaplan's Minute of News from 3 to 7. All day, all season. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
So with all the Black Friday stuff that's been going on, we're excited to tell you about the best deal we've seen so far, and that's Fed Up Kitchen's Black Friday sale.
That's right. It's the BOGO sale, and it's back. Buy one 4-week meal program, get another 4 weeks half off. It's so easy.
Yeah, that's 2 weeks of free healthy meals. You can order online at fedupkitchen.com.
Fed Up Kitchen is a healthy meal prep service. Healthy, delicious, ready-to-eat meals that will keep you full and satisfied.
And it's so easy to use. All you have to do is order online for next day pickup, or if you want them to deliver it, they can do that as well.
You can store your healthy meals right in the fridge, and when you get hungry, just heat them up.
Personally, my favorite is the chicken corn chowder.
How about those turkey chili cheese fries?
And if you need a healthy snack, they even have healthy muffins and cookies.
They're gluten-free, they're macro-friendly. Fed Up Kitchen meals are high in protein and low in carbs and fat.
It's healthy eating made easy. Go to fedupkitchen.com.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Do you ever feel like getting your supplies for your CPAP is just a huge headache? Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent with Alpine Home Medical. We'll say goodbye to the hassle and hello to a stress-free life with our CPAP resupply service. Signing up is a breeze. Just place a call, choose your products, and leave the insurance billing and shipping to us. Our discreet packaging prioritizes your privacy, and we always ensure an on-time delivery. No more trips to the store or worrying about running out of important supplies. We get how crucial your CPAP therapy is, so don't let the stress of keeping up with it affect your sleep and health. Join Alpine Resupply today and enjoy a tranquil night's sleep with all your CPAP essentials. Visit us at alpinehomemedical.com.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
That's alpinehomemedical.com.
Holiday Stories from Shane Company customers.
It's our first Christmas together, and I wanted to get her something special. That's why I went to Shane Company. They had so many great gifts to choose from. It was a toss-up between hoop earrings and an emerald bracelet. So I got both, one for under the tree and one for her stocking.
Shop holiday gifts in every price range. Fine jewelry crafted with care and made to last a lifetime. 'Tis the season to shine. Shane Company. Fine jewelry since 1929.
Advanced Window Products is having their biggest sale of the year. If your old windows let the winter cold seep in, now's the time to get the highest quality double-pane windows and custom insulated frames. Advanced Window Products is a local company that crafts beautiful precision frames right here in Salt Lake City for 37 years. And the magic is, they cut out the middleman. They build the windows, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. So you save on the highest quality windows and frames. Any style, any color, any questions? Yes, financing. They offer 60-month 0% financing. They'll even let you put off the first payment up to 2 years, and while that's tempting to think about, the reason to call them right now is the biggest sale of the year. This month only, when they do your entire home of 10 windows or more, you get $3,500 off plus a free premium glass upgrade. So call Advanced Window Products right now, 801-850-9100, 801-850-9100, or advancedwindowsusa.com.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Lori Vallow Daybell has arrived in Arizona to face charges in that state. She's already serving a life prison term in Idaho for the murders of her 2 youngest children. Second, the private Cottonwood Connect ski bus will be running again this winter, taking skiers to resorts in Big and Little Cottonwood Canyons. And third, Elon Musk battling with advertisers who won't put their money into X anymore. Right now, 34 degrees and cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Well, as we continue to look for solutions to reduce the polarization in our country and improve the discourse, elevate the conversation with each other, there may be one obvious solution whose whole purpose is to recenter and reframe our thinking. It's a liberal arts education. What exactly are we talking about? How could that liberal arts be used to help us talk with each other a little bit better? Really pleased to have joining us on the program today Andrew Latham, a professor of political science at Macalester College. Had a great piece in The Hill talking about how liberal arts education could well be the answer to, at least part of the answer to political polarization. And Professor Latham, thanks so much for joining us today.
A great pleasure to be here.
So you have really gone down this path that we strive to get to every day, and that is this old notion of, where's the wisdom we lost in knowledge, where's the knowledge we lost in information. You've been taking that one step further in terms of the illusion of knowledge is even becoming a bigger challenge in our polarization. Describe that for us and why that liberal arts education can be part of the solution to that.
Sure. Well, I think people become absolutely increasingly convinced that they have the truth, capital T, and they don't, because there is no absolute truth in that respect. And a liberal arts education gets you to step back a little bit, ideally, in any case, step back a little bit and say, okay, I believe this to be the truth, but are my assumptions, my concepts, my ideas, are they actually beyond challenge?
Yeah.
And that, I think, is the real benefit and the hope, really, for us, is that if we can educate students and young people who are going to go on to leadership positions to step back and say, maybe stroking their chin, metaphorically, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know everything. Yeah.
Yeah. We always say that instant certainty is the enemy of truth, and it undermines trust. But it's also that false sense of certainty that you pointed out in your piece in The Hill that causes us to be in that bubble. And again, kind of beyond reproach, we have the truth, and so we don't need to listen or engage. And I think one of the things that we lose in all of that is our curiosity. And I think that's a great threat to our constitutional republic, is if we can't even question that we might be wrong, as you said, or that we can't even wonder, I wonder why she thinks that's the best solution, or I wonder why he thinks that's good
Right.
policy.
Yeah, I mean, you said the word curiosity, and that is my watchword. I really want to instill that as part of a liberal arts education, curiosity. What other ways are there of thinking about my dearly held beliefs? And how might I approach this particular topic slightly differently? And the curiosity piece, why do those other people think differently? Are they crazy? Are they evil? Probably not. They just start from a different point of departure. And so thinking, I like that idea of curiosity very much. And I think that's the core of a liberal arts education.
Yeah. and I think that often leads to something else you pointed out in your piece that I just loved, and that is that curiosity leads to, I think, one of the essential ingredients, which is intellectual humility. Walk us through that, and how do we foster that?
Yeah, and so I wrote intellectual humility, but the technical term for me is epistemic humility. I just don't know what I don't know. I'm not, as an individual human being, in possession of the absolute truth. I can't know everything that there is to know, and then curiosity kicks in. So what don't I know about the world? And about the people whom I disagree with. And so just that humility part is the key, whether it's epistemic or intellectual, that's the key move. I don't know everything. I need to question my fundamental assumptions.
And so as we start down that path, and I think this is where on a college campus, you are in the laboratory every day, and I think it's the most important laboratory of these young minds and hearts that will ultimately lead in so many important places. How do we best equip them to have that curiosity, to have that intellectual humility, to be able to take a liberal arts idea or grounding and actually parlay that into our homes, into our communities, and into the country?
You know, it's a tough struggle because on many campuses across this country in the year 2023, there is no sense of intellectual or epistemic humility. There's this one way of thinking about things, and that's the polarization piece. I think so I teach one class called Liberal and Conservative Political Thought. And the liberal political thought, that part goes down relatively easily. But the it's always full. There's always lots of students who want to understand at a very liberal arts college. They want to understand how anybody could believe this conservative stuff. And I think that upending of their sort of predispositions, I think that's the key. Just I'm not quite sure how to say this, but just messing them up a little bit intellectually. And there's a hunger for it. Like I said, this course is always more than full because people, young people, I think they have an intrinsic, inherent curiosity, and they just want to know what the other side thinks. I'm happy to do that for them.
Yeah, I love that. We need more of that, and we need it not just on college campuses. We need it in our nation's capital. We need it in state houses and community centers and coffee shops.
We sure do. Yes, absolutely.
Give us one final thought, Professor. If there was one thing we all could do today to kind of get past this enemy of knowledge not being ignorance, but the illusion of knowledge, what would you have us do today?
I would have everybody on any given day step back and, as I said earlier, stroke their metaphorical chin and say, "Boy, I didn't think of it that way. That's interesting." Right. I think that's the first step on the road to depolarization. Boy, I didn't think of it that way before. Maybe I'm wrong.
I love that. Great perspective. A great piece in The Hill. You should check that out. Andrew Latham, Professor of Political Science at Macalester College. Professor, thank you so much for joining us and getting us curious and helping us get to that space of humility where we can actually lean in and learn from one another and elevate the dialogue and the conversation in the process. Thank you so much for joining us today.
A great pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Again, great perspective there. That's Professor Andrew Latham from Macalester College. And it was just a delightful piece for me to go through and think of it in a different kind of way. It really is that old adage that, where is the wisdom we lost in knowledge? Where's the knowledge we lost in information? And as the professor pointed out, that the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance. It's not ignorance. The greatest enemy of knowledge is the illusion of knowledge, that instant certainty that we often caution against, instant certainty, that false sense of certainty that causes us to stop listening, to stop questioning, to stop being curious, to stop having the humility to think I might be wrong or that someone else might have a better way. That's the beginning of a better conversation. Great thanks to Andrew Latham for that perspective. We'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news. Don't go anywhere. Michael Rubin's going to join us next as we break down the life and legacy of a complicated, complex person who was in the room where it happened and moved history, Henry Kissinger, coming up next.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top story this hour: how will we improve our air quality in time for the 2034 Olympics? Well, the key to reaching the city's goals, like a 50% reduction in carbon emissions, lies in our transit habits. KSL News Radio's Hugo Rickard-Bell has more on that.
One of the main contributors to valley pollution is the sheer amount of traffic. But according to the Utah Division of Air Quality, the state is requiring industry freight, like trucks and trains, to update their transport with technology like better scrubbing controls to reduce emissions. Efforts to improve fuel quality and increase public transit options are also being made.
As a whole, air quality in Utah has actually been improving. According to Bryce Bird with the Division of Air Quality, there's still a way to go to reach the goals by the time the Olympics come back to Utah 10 years from now. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. New details in a developing story out of Las Vegas today, where 2 Nevada state troopers were killed this morning. ABC's Alex Stone reports.
According to multiple law enforcement sources talking to ABC News, an arrest has now been made of a driver who allegedly plowed a pickup truck into 2 Nevada state troopers who were along the side of Interstate 15 checking on a driver. The carnage has been described as extreme. The 2 troopers were killed. The driver who hit them took off. A large, somber procession brought the troopers' bodies to the coroner's office. Alex Stone, ABC News.
And your money at this moment, at the close of trading, the Dow Jones average was up 520 points today, about 1.4%. The NASDAQ, though, down 32 points. The S&P 500 was up 17. And our KSL weather. Eventually, we're going to get rid of this crummy air. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:32.
What do you need to hear in the morning to feel ready for the day?
Important news that happened overnight, the traffic you'll hit on the roads.
You'll be ready for your day with us.
Join Utah's Morning News 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Exergen thermometers are proven to be more accurate than non-contact thermometers. With children back at school, keeping them healthy is important. Clinical studies have proven that non-contact thermometers are inaccurate and can miss fevers. Accuracy matters. That's why the Exergen thermometer is trusted and used by medical professionals. Exergen thermometers are available at Walmart and other participating retailers. Choose a trusted and accurate thermometer for personal use. Learn more about why accuracy matters at Exergen.com.
At Common Spirit Holy Cross Hospitals, we're honored to carry the legacy of our namesake and to extend the legacy of care in our communities. We're part of 20 hospitals and 240 clinics across Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Learn more at holycrossutah.org.
With our roots in northern Utah, Common Spirit Holy Cross Hospitals have a legacy of caring to help every person be whole and healthy. We're part of 20 hospitals and 240 clinics across Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Learn more at holycrossutah.org.
I'm Dr. Stork. Eggs are a staple in our diets, and there's only one egg with more delicious farm fresh taste plus superior nutrition. Eggland's Best. With more vitamins, including 6 times more vitamin D and 10 times more vitamin E, plus 25% less saturated fat than ordinary eggs. Available in so many delicious varieties. Classic, cage-free, and organic. Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs.
Hey, it's Amanda, and a little thing I love about the Chick-fil-A nugget trays is that they're so easy for the holidays. They're warm and flavorful. It's always a crowd pleaser. When I put down a nugget tray, everyone is happy.
Hey, this is Brian, and the little thing I love about the Chick-fil-A nugget trays is the joy that it brings to me and everybody around me during the holidays. They're warm, juicy, and delicious.
Cater the holidays with Chick-fil-A today. Available on the Chick-fil-A app. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
If you've been trying to get into that holiday dress you wore a few years ago and you can't get it zipped because you've gained some weight, boy, have I been there and done that. I can remember there was a time when I had 4 or 5 different sizes in my closet. And I think, are these the pants that fit me? Are these the pants that fit me? And then I'd have to find a sweater that was long enough to go over. And now, since I've lost this 34 pounds on Soda Weight Loss, my day is easier. I have, for the first time in my adult life, one size in my closet. You have no idea how much joy that gives me. People, you've got to check out Soda Weight Loss.
And here's the thing. This will be the last time you ever go through this process because they have the same goal that you do, not just to lose the weight now, but to keep that weight off. We've told you the average man loses 3 to 5 pounds a week, the average female 2 to 3 pounds a week. They can help you too and set your goals for the new year 2024 that is right around the corner. Reach out to them at sodaweightloss.com, spelled S-O-T-A. Think Tim and Amanda. It is state-of-the-art.
Get your photos with Santa this holiday season. Jordan Landing Shopping Center, located in the Entertainment Plaza across from Cinemark. Check jordanlanding.com for Santa schedule and photo pricing.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
Looks like fire crews have just completed mopping up an earlier vehicle fire westbound to I-80, not far from Bangerter Highway. It's been moved over to the right shoulder, what's left of it, and the rest of your Valley freeways seeing no problems and good speeds. Join the Utah Symphony for the greatest classical hits from the 1700s to today. Tickets start at $21. Get yours today at utahsymphony.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, a series of small storms will start moving the inversion out tomorrow. We'll see periods of valley and mountain snow starting Friday. Going through the weekend, we could see a few inches of snow in the valleys, along with several feet in the mountains. Right now, it's cloudy and 34 degrees. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Get deeper insights on the news from inside sources.
Yesterday, the news broke that former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger had passed away at the age of 100. He was an immigrant, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, often credited with opening the door to U.S.-China relations, but his legacy is very complicated, to say the least, as well as his reputation, also complicated, sometimes overinflated, sometimes deflected. And so he is a complex individual, and so we're not going to whitewash or sugarcoat anything, but we want to look at the repercussions of someone who was often in the room where it happened, good, bad, and indifferent over the course of a very storied career, a very big person on the national stage. And Michael Rubin, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, had a great piece in the Washington Examiner looking at Henry Kissinger's reputation, in particular as it relates to China. And Michael, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Boyd.
So obviously with someone of the stature of Henry Kissinger, big on the world stage, and just doesn't matter whether people loved him or loathed him, it was really complicated.
It absolutely was. Look, Henry Kissinger was a figure like none other. On a personal level, he was known for his warmth and his sense of humor. On the international stage, however, he often made very controversial compromises. If I had to sum them up quickly, I would basically say that he often prioritized short-term gain at the expense of the long-term stability, and therefore, while it may have looked like he made the right decision 50 years ago, 50 years on, arguably situations from the Eastern Mediterranean to India to China are much more complicated by the decisions he made way back when.
Yeah, and that is always the test of history, and it's why we often say that if you're really lucky, you might get a line in a history book. Kissinger has more than a few lines, and some of them are good, and some of them are suboptimal, to say the least. And so I want to dig into some of the areas that you got into, particularly as it relates to China, because I think there are some important lessons there, not only for the time when they were made, always easier looking back, but I think there's some important lessons in terms of what we're doing today.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Boyd. Look, I'm a diplomatic historian by training, which means I get paid to predict the past. And I've gone through all the documents, memoirs, not only from Kissinger, but from his opponents. And what is very, very clear is that the Chinese never expected to get the concessions they received from Kissinger. It's also very clear that they had a strategy to play to his ego, to praise him, to get him to let his guard down. And unfortunately, he fell into that trap. So when we look at some of the disputes between China and Taiwan today, those disputes were made worse by some of the decisions which Kissinger made, some of the concessions he made. And at the same time, there's also Kissinger version 2.0 after he was a public figure, when he started going into business with some of these countries. And one of the big secrets in Washington remains the client list of Kissinger associates.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that will be an interesting part of history as well as that moves its way out. Give us some sense. One of the things where Kissinger tended to get praise was kind of that pragmatic portion. Sometimes that pragmatism didn't do well in terms of human rights as a consequence. But give us the sense, especially with a place like China, where you have to go head to head, you have to compete, and there are places like in dealing with places like Iran or North Korea where you have to be able to at least communicate or work with them. How did he influence that part of the dynamic of when do you go at each other and compete, and then when do you have to actually be complementary or cooperative?
Well, I mean, Kissinger set the path for those who, like Hillary Clinton years later, said, look, if you're not going to talk to your enemies, then who are you going to talk to? He opened the door to dialogue much more than had existed before. At the same time, where I would criticize Kissinger is sometimes he put that pragmatism, he mirror imaged it onto his opponents, and he discounted the importance of ideology. You had Mao Zedong's ideology in China, and you have, of course, the supreme leader's ideology in Iran. And in both cases, I think Kissinger's strategy failed simply because he thought that his opponents were going to be pragmatists like he was. And really what they did is they looked at diplomacy as an asymmetric warfare strategy, while Kissinger looked at it as how to get to yes.
Yeah, and I think that's such a fascinating thing to unpack a little bit. I want to dig into that because I do think we, especially in the West and the U.S. in particular, that we often do project our own values and, oh, well, they will respond this way because that's how we would respond, versus they may have a little different design and very different intentions.
Well, I think you're absolutely right there, Boyd. But one issue that hasn't really been discussed with regard to Kissinger is, as Secretary of State, he was the one that reformed the Foreign Service so that diplomats only served 2 years at most in each post, because he discounted the role of expertise. The legacy of that, I think, is huge, as diplomats basically became much more shallow. He thought they would be interchangeable, that he could be the puppet master, but in reality, the bureaucracy has grown so big and so shallow that it impacts the effectiveness of U.S. diplomacy across the board.
Wow, I think that is crucial insight, because it really has led, not just in terms of the diplomatic corps, but I think we see this in other places, that everything has become so transactional that if you are just rotating people out every 2 years, it's both superficial and shallow, as you said, but there's also no relationship development in that process either. And it allows those with maybe more sinister designs to manipulate things or to dismiss people because they're going to be gone in 2 years anyway. And so then you end up with, those that are in the wings or in the shadows that are really pulling the strings.
Well, I agree with you. And the problem is, Boyd, that if your institutional memory is only 2 years long and autocrats last for decades, they learn how to outplay. We don't identify the patterns. I just came back from Korea a couple weeks ago, and what one old Korea hand said with regard to American diplomats, it takes 3 years to learn how much you don't know, and diplomats only stay for 2 years. They don't even learn the language adequately in that time, and therefore we're constantly getting outplayed by the South Korean left, by the North Koreans, and the same pattern extends to China.
I think that's such an important lesson for all of us, that this is another area where we've got to think again about what we think we know or the way we think we should organize government and officials and ambassadors and diplomats, Because, as you said, if we're always just in that learning curve, it really does take time to figure out what you don't know and to get the nuances of countries and relationships and all of those kinds of things. Give us one last thought before I let you go, Michael, in terms of what is one other lesson coming out of Henry Kissinger's time and his influence on the world stage that does have some real hardcore application to where we are today?
Well, what I would say is perspective matters. That moral clarity matters. We can throw democracies under the bus the way Kissinger threw India under the bus, the way he threw Greece and Cyprus under the bus, but ultimately the pendulum swings the other way. Today, we need the energy resources in the Eastern Mediterranean. India is our ally, but the bitterness of Kissinger's decisions in both places remain.
That long-term perspective, so important. Michael Rubin, Senior Fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Great piece in the Washington Examiner today. Great perspective. And you are looking forward as you look back. You are a great predictor of the past, but you're also a great predictor of the future because you've learned those lessons. Thanks for joining us, Michael.
Thank you, Boyd.
All right, we'll step aside for one last break and come back with some final thoughts on Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Stick around.
Get ready, Utah! It's Medicare annual enrollment period, so why not make enrolling easier with United Healthcare? Whether you choose our online tools or over-the-phone support, United Healthcare will help you compare options so you can choose a plan with confidence. This is Medicare made for Utah, trusted everywhere. Explore our wide range of plans by calling United Healthcare today at 1-855-MEET-UHC. That's 1-855-MEET-UHC. Annual enrollment begins October 15th and ends December 7th, so call today.
As I look at my path to the NFL, I wouldn't have been able to do it by myself. Having a supporting cast for me made all the difference, both on and off the field. And the thing I realized this last year was having that supporting cast made my dreams and my goals a reality. I prepare as best as I can for every situation on the football field. You know, that same mindset applies to me as a husband, as a dad. And being a new father with an 8-month-old child, I've realized that, you know, I now have a responsibility to my son and to my wife, just like I do my teammates. I spend all my time being a quarterback, and I need to find people that I can trust and rely upon. Deseret First Credit Union, they are those people that are spending all that time to help me manage and take care of my family. My name is Taysom Hill, and my why is faith, family, and football.
Some days I cover up because of my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. Now I'm hitting the road with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieved 90% clearer skin at 4 months. And Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZI to learn more.
In 400 AD, a forgotten time in ancient America, warrior prophet Moroni must preserve the history of his fallen nation while being hunted by a ruthless tyrant.
Where is the brave general now?
From Freestyle Releasing and Great Scott Entertainment comes
the memory of my God,
The Oath.
My faith and my freedom, my wife and my son.
The Oath, coming to theaters on December 8th, rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. More information is available at oathmovie.com.
You can't expect a policeman to unclog your drain. You shouldn't ask a teacher to change your oil. And you wouldn't want a fireman to clean your teeth. So why would we let politicians take over our internet service? That's just not what they do. Experience proves government-run networks mean waste, corruption, and failure. One example, called Utopia, promised to provide internet service in 16 cities within a few years. But over 20 years and hundreds of millions of dollars later, a better name would be dystopia. They say it's almost complete. We say stop wasting our money. Go to nogovinternet.com and tell lawmakers enough is enough. Local tax dollars are precious, and public employees have plenty to do already. Don't let politicians mess with our internet. Paid for by nogovinternet.com, a project of Domestic Policy Caucus.
There's something on sale every day during IFA's annual Fall-A-Day Co-op as we celebrate 100 years in the Intermountain West with 100 days of deals you can't believe. Every day, another great deal and a great time to start thinking Christmas with go-to gifts for men, women, kids, and pets. Just order online, pick up, and grow. The IFA Fall-A-Day sale, now through December 24th at ifa.coop.
When I heard Andy Farnsworth say the other day about how much weight he had lost on the SOTA weight loss program and how much it's brought down his A1C numbers, I was blown away, Tim.
Well, that's what this program does.
It does. I mean, I lost 34 pounds in a little less than 3 months. And one of the things I loved about losing that weight is that my husband, too, was diagnosed with diabetes. And we wanted to eat healthier as a family. So SOTA sort of got me in the right frame of mind and taught me, this is the yogurt you buy. These are the ones you buy, not just for yourself and your husband, but for your kids, too.
And by the way, if you don't have a family surrounding you right now, you become part of the family at SOTA because you have a nutritionist who is right there every step of the way to make sure that even when you fall off the wagon for a little bit, they can help you get back on. They know where you've struggled. They know where you have made gains, and they can help you not just lose that weight, but keep that weight off. My daughter lost 42 pounds. They can help you too. Go to SOTAweightloss.com, spelled S-O-T-A. Think Tim and Amanda. It is state-of-the-art.
Mr. Max buy one, get one sale. Buy one suit for $299. Get the second for $100. Any style, any occasion. Free alterations in 9 locations. Mr. Mac.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, when the Olympics come back to Utah, will our air quality be better than it is now? Well, second, turns out a power washer outside a daycare in Draper was responsible for carbon monoxide exposure inside. And third, 2 Nevada State troopers have been killed in a hit-and-run incident in Las Vegas. Right now, 34 degrees and cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as always. I am Boyd Matheson, and as we round out the program today, if you missed our conversation earlier, I just have to come back to this. I love what I learn on this show, which is every day. And one of the people I learned the most from today was Stephen Pearlstein, who had just this wonderful piece on why there's so much dysfunction in our nation's capital. And it was really interesting. He was talking about it in the context of Fantasyland. And normally we think of Fantasyland as a nice, fun game for kids. But it is not a good game that we are playing in our nation's capital, but it is Fantasyland. And he was an equal opportunity offender, which we applaud on this show. He talked about the Fantasyland of the right and what they believe they can do by just hunkering down, holding on, and eventually bullying their way through and getting things done. He talked about the Fantasyland of the liberal left. And that they just think they're one election away and then they can get rid of the filibuster and they can implement all of these things and that the nation is with them. And then he talked about the Fantasyland of the center and the moderates and the idea that they're the ones who could actually lead us out of all of this. But the fact is that the incentives are so upside down and backwards that it makes it difficult even for those who are in that space from actually standing up with courage and conviction and being able to do things. Why? Because they know that they'll be primaried in their next election, or that the incentives for someone on the left to be helpful to someone who's on the right go away in an election year. And Stephen actually pointed to a great example of this that I think is pretty telling and worth repeating really quickly. And that was this whole idea. You had someone on the right, representative of Congress, who stood up to his own party during the course of the impeachment proceedings, and he voted to impeach then President Trump. And the Democrats cheered And they were all on board, and they praised him, and they validated him, and they did all of that right up until the next election. And then they didn't even wait until the general election. The Democrats actually poured $2.4 million into another Republican who was very extreme, way out in that part of fantasy land, because they knew it would be easier for the Democrats to defeat a far-right candidate in a moderate district than it was this representative who had stood up and done the right thing and everybody had praised. And so those are the challenges. And so as we looked at how do we get past fantasy land, I want to go back to a couple of comments that Stephen Pearlstein made to us. And Stephen is an award-winning writer. He is a great thinker. And I want to go back to a couple of things that he said, because we got to the therefore what portion of the program. And that is, so what do we do with this? How do we get out of this fantasy land of the far left, the far right, and even those in the moderate middle who are unable to stand up? And he talked about it in the context of leadership.
You need to have some people who are willing to be leaders. And I don't just mean the leaders of the party, although it certainly could be them, to just stand up and say, we shouldn't play this game anymore. Okay, we shouldn't play these games. We should realize that we're not going to get everything we want, and we realize, more importantly, that we're going to have to give in on things that we really find distasteful in order to get some stuff that we really want. You just need a few people who are willing to do it, willing to take the heat, and willing to really shine the light on everyone else's fantasies by saying, what are you holding out for?
What are you holding out for, and what are you afraid of? That is the question. And I love that Stephen put it in the context of real leadership. We often give people the title of leader because they're the Speaker of the House or the minority leader. That doesn't mean they're leading. That just means they have a title. We need people who are actually willing to do the hard work and heavy lifting of leading. They're the leaders that we actually need. Stephen actually used the debate over immigration as an example of this ideological gridlock in fantasy land from both sides that we could overcome pretty easily because there is actually a lot of agreement.
You know, let's take the immigration issue, which is right before us again this week, okay? The Republicans, the Democrats say, look, we need a path to citizenship. We need a path to legalization for 10 million people who are here. The other side said we got to do something about border security. The obvious compromise is let's do both.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, each of those things is distasteful to the other party, but it's farther away than ever because no one was willing to accept the part of it that they find distasteful, even if it's sort of reasonable, even if it's made moderate. And somebody needs to stand up and says, we're going to do this. And by the way, there's enough of us that we're not going to let you do anything else until you do this.
And that's the important thing, is when that middle, those leaders say, not only are we not going to cave in to the left or the right, but we're not going to let you do anything else on the floor until we actually deal with this. And guess what? They could do that. Even if you just took the problem solver caucus in the House, they have enough votes. They could drive what gets put on the floor and what doesn't. But it's really hard because the incentives, the political incentives, the stay in power incentives are all backwards. I also love the fact that Stephen said that I hated the fact that he said we've never been further away when it comes to issues like immigration. And I think the sad irony is we've never been closer and we've never been further away. And that's a tragedy of opportunity because we've never been closer. I've never seen more agreement. I still believe we could solve 94.5% of immigration in an afternoon on the floor of the House and the Senate because everyone agrees we've never been closer in terms of what needs to be done. And sadly, we've never been further away because of the ideologies and the politics, the power of politics, the idea of power, rather than the power of ideals is driving the day. Finally, in our conversation with Stephen,